Welcome to Christmas at Journey, and welcome to Christmas at the Movies. We did this same theme a year ago, and we got so much positive feedback from it, we decided we would recycle this theme with different movies and with more popcorn. So enjoy popcorn every week, because who doesn't want popcorn first thing in the morning, right? You like to get a good kernel stuck right down there on the gum line that you have to deal with the rest of the day. We're trying to keep all of our dental hygienists employed throughout this season. Part of our Christmas celebration every year is a Christmas offering, and it's a time for us to consider giving an extra gift as we go to the end of the year. Maybe you're planning some end-of-year giving, and we target some projects outside of our general budget. One of the main ones this year is we have a part-time position that we want to move to full-time, but we don't want to put all the burden of that position on our general budget, and so we've already seen the benefits of greater focus on groups and volunteers, connecting people to our church when they visit, and so we want to keep moving in that direction. So part of our Christmas offering will go to that, and then there's some maintenance and renovation goals that we have for our campus, a wall in the back that will prevent all of that nice orange mud from running right where you have to walk when it rains on Sunday mornings, and some renovating that we didn't get to with last year's Christmas offering on the front of our building. So consider being a part of that as we head to the end of the year. You may or may not know it if you're new, but we love Christmas here at Journey, and when I say we, I mean me. I love Christmas, and everybody else humors me here because I love Christmas, although I do have at least a few Christmas soulmates in the church who love Christmas as much or more than I do. They love the decorating and the lights and the festive sweaters and the white Christmas coffee and the Little Debbie Christmas tree cakes. Where are my Christmas people out? Like you're all in already? Good, thank you. Yes, God loves our church. I love that. I do want to welcome, just kind of pause here, I want to welcome the can't celebrate until after Thanksgiving people to Christmas. I'm so glad that you're here. We've been waiting for you. We've been so excited about you getting here. And we knew you would. We knew eventually you would get here, and we welcome you. We welcome you to this season. No judgment on the way you do it. Just no judgment from you on the way we do it. That one thing I would say for the after Thanksgiving people is, like, we're ready. Like, there's no time for you to warm up. If you're going to wait till this late in the season, you got to be ready to go. Like, no stretching. We're all stretched out. Like, we went to PT. We've been warming up with this thing for a good month at least now, and so that's all we ask. Thanksgiving people, we just ask that you get in and you get ready to go, because this is such a great season. And it's great, not just because of the fun and the songs and the decorations. I mean, this is the season that we celebrate God stepping out of heaven into his creation. The God of all, who created everything, taking on flesh and becoming a baby. God joining his creation in order to redeem his creation, taking on all of the frailty of humanity, all of the limitations of humanity, limitations he had never known before in all of eternity past. He was willing to put those limitations on himself because we needed a Savior. We need to be redeemed and forgiven from our sins, and God comes during this season. This is what we celebrate at this time of year, is God coming to be with us. Emmanuel, God with us, but not just to be with us, to see us, to know us, to hear us, even to be in us. God come for us. So yes, we sing songs. And yes, we decorate, and yes, we wear festive outfits this time of year, and we give gifts, because the greatest thing ever happened. God came to earth. And not just that, but we watch movies too. Like we watch movies at Christmas too, and maybe you have a favorite. Maybe it's a classic, or maybe it's not a classic, but it's become a classic to you, and so you have one that you watch every single year. Maybe you get the whole family together. We are going to watch this one Or for some of you that are diehards, which is a Christmas movie, by the way, some of you who are diehards, you've got a whole 25 movies of Christmas. You've already got it mapped out. Maybe you found it online. Maybe you made your own list. You're ready to get home this afternoon and watch movie number 1 from your list. If that's you, somewhere on your list, I'm guessing, is The Grinch Who Stole Christmas. Some version, some format, whether it's the animated version or whether it's one of the live action versions, this almost always makes the list for every single person. And I think probably because the Grinch is just such a fun character. He's just a fun character. In one sense, we all know a Grinch. Right? Some of us live with a Grinch. Some of us are married to a Grinch. Some of you are a Grinch. Yeah, we just know people. It's a very identifiable character, and it's very easy to kind of say, oh, you go in the Grinch category. The Grinch character is created by Dr. Seuss, of course. In 1955, he first appeared in a poem in Red Book magazine. Anybody's mama, grandmama get Red Book magazine? Remember seeing it on the coffee table? Yep. First appears in a poem, and then 2 years later, 1957, Seuss publishes The Grinch Who Stole Christmas, and he becomes the familiar Christmas stealer that we know him to be. And like I said, throughout the years, various versions and formats of this movie have been used. The one we're going to use today is the 2000 version with Jim Carrey as the Grinch. Anybody's favorite of all the Grinch movies? Yep, lots of hands. Yeah, absolutely. Now, this version, I will admit, takes a lot of liberties with the original source material, right? It's not exactly canon, but you sort of have to expand a children's story in order to make it a full-length movie. And this version really does expand the story so much that it was a little difficult to decide which of these themes do we want to run with today. Like we can't cover all of them to the same degree. For example, just the basic don't be a Grinch theme is enough. Like, have some joy. Be happy. Don't make everybody miserable. Like, we could spend a couple of Sundays just on stop making people miserable, right? Some of you want that message for somebody that you know and love this morning. We could go that direction. Another direction that I saw in the movie as I was watching this time is this theme. How we see Christmas shapes our Christmas. Like your perspective. We all come into Christmas 2024 with a particular perspective on life and relationships, a particular view on the world and how things are going or not going, wherever you stand on different places. We bring a perspective, we bring a view to Christmas, and that view shapes our ability to celebrate and really enjoy Christmas. In the movie, the problem, of course, was all of the commercialization. Seuss wrote this particular children's story as a form of protest against what he saw at the time as materialism and consumerism and commercialism of Christmas. So this was kind of his subtle protest against what he saw, and he writes that into his characters, specifically Cindy Lou Who, the heroine of our story. She's the first to notice, like, boy, we're really kind of emphasizing the wrong things. Watch this clip.
Arbor Day was fine, and Easter was pleasant, and every St. Fizzin's Day they ate a fizz pheasant. But every who knew, from their 12 toes to their snout, they loved Christmas the most, without a single who doubt.
Farfingles welcomes you. Merry Christmas. Thank you for shopping, Farfingles.
We've got a snoozle phone for your brother Drew, and a snoozle phone for your brother Stu, Munkle for your uncle, Aunt for your aunt, and a fan pie for your cousin Leon. So we just need Cindy. Cindy Lou. Merry Christmas. Oh, hello, Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, Fred. Excuse me. Cindy Lou, honey.
Dad?
Yeah?
Doesn't this seem like a bit much?
This is what Christmas is all about. Can't you feel it?
Doesn't this seem like a bit much? I don't know what your weekend was like, but maybe you were there this weekend. By the way, nothing wrong with gifts and nothing wrong with that side of Christmas. But as we're stepping into December 1st today, it's maybe a good day to recalibrate what our priority is for the next 24 days. Recalibrate what our emphasis is, what our priority is going to be, to reset what is going to be most important about this season, how you view this season, what you prioritize in this season determines so much about what your Christmas is going to be. Is it going to be meaningful, or is it going to pass and January's here and you would have missed the ultimate meaning of this season? How we see Christmas shapes our Christmas, but also how we see others shapes our Christmas. How we see others. We all bring relational content, relational baggage maybe. We all bring relationships into this season, but even outside of our close relationships, there are people all around us. In the stress, in the busyness, you've got a long list just like I've got a long list. Your calendar's full just like my calendar's full. And if we aren't careful, we're so busy meeting all of the demands, checking all of the boxes, getting to all of the activities that we miss the people that should be in view this Christmas. We miss the people who maybe have the greatest needs. This was one of the liberties that this particular version took with the story of the Grinch. It gave kind of a growing up story to the Grinch and kind of some harsh treatment that he experienced as a child that helped turn him into the Grinch. The one person in the story who was somehow able to detect that, somehow able to see that, was, again, our heroine, Cindy Lou who realized there was something he needed. He needed to be seen and known and recognized. So at one kind of pivotal point in the movie, she suggests a very important award, going to the Grinch. Here's the scene. Watch this.
And now the nominations for that Who Among Us who best typifies the qualities of Whodum and Whodoree, the Whoville Holiday Cheermeister. Do I hear a nomination?
I nominate the Grinch!
My. What an altruistic daughter you have there, Lou.
Thank you.
Cindy? Let me quote a verse from the Book of Who. Thank you. The term Grinchy shall apply when Christmas spirit is in short supply. Now I ask you, does that sound like our holiday cheermeister?
True, Mr. Mayhew. But the Book of Who says this too. No matter how different a Who may appear, he will always be welcome with holiday cheer.
Well, yes, but the book also says the award cannot go to the Grinch because sometimes things get the lead pipe cinch.
You made that up. It doesn't say that.
Oh, no, it does.
What page?
Oops, lost my place, but it's in here.
But the book does say the cheermeister is the one who deserves a back slap or a toast. And it goes to the soul at Christmas who needs it most. And I believe that soul is the Grinch. And if you're the Who's I hope you are, you will too. She's right.
The ability to see the one who had the most need, Again, you're busy. I'm busy. You have calendar and obligations and places that you need to go, and you will pass many people this Christmas season who need a moment of your time, a word from you, some encouraging words from you, just coffee, lunch, just some time, or maybe someone that you need to help, that you need to give something to. The way you see others. The interesting thing, the portrayal that they have in this movie, it reminds me that we can always come up with a reason to not help somebody. Like the mayor could turn to the book of Who, to the exact verse that says, no, I don't have to help this person. And when he couldn't find a verse, he could just make up a verse about why we shouldn't help this particular person. We have that ability as humans to rationalize why I don't need to help someone. I totally get that social media is not a real place, to paraphrase Kevin Hart from many years ago. I totally realize social media is not a real place, and much of what is put on social media is fabricated to some degree, embellished to some degree, made up to some degree, or at a minimum, it's just one part of the story. So I'm hesitant to bring these sort of things up on Sunday mornings. But for several months at least, in one corner of social media, there has been this ongoing debate over the phrase toxic empathy or toxic compassion. And sort of that sized argument is you don't need to care too much for people. Like sometimes you can care too much. Sometimes you can love too much. Sometimes you can be too invested. There are some people that maybe you shouldn't care that much about, which is strange for us who follow a Messiah who once said, like, here's the greatest two things you can do is love God with all your heart and love your neighbor as yourself. Like, no, only to a point. There was not a love other. He even at one point said, love your enemies, and he didn't follow that with, but only to a certain point. Be careful, don't get taken advantage of. Be careful of toxic empathy. Jesus never used phrases like this. He simply said love. Be compassionate. Have an empathetic heart to people who are hurting. The way you see others, your willingness to respond to the needs of others will shape your Christmas. We have all experienced this. I would wager we have all experienced a moment where God prompted us to do something for someone else, and we did it, and it was the best part of our Christmas. Maybe nobody else knew about it, but you and that person. Maybe it was a really small group of people who ever knew about that story, but there was a moment, maybe it was somebody you knew, maybe it wasn't somebody that you knew, but you just felt God's Spirit saying, speak, give, do, call, go to lunch with this person. And it became the most significant moment of your Christmas. The way we see others will shape our Christmas. We got 24 days left. This is the front step. This is the front door of Christmas right now. We're jumping in today, but I'm telling you, the way you see Christmas, the perspective you have, the priorities you have for Christmas, and the way you see others, whether that's with a compassionate heart or with a stingy heart, a Grinch heart, that will determine how this Christmas goes. Now, obviously, the overarching theme of this movie is that Christmas comes without the things we may think are necessary. It comes with all of the traditions and without all of the traditions. It comes with all of the gifts and giving, and it comes in those seasons when there's not as much gifts and giving. It comes with all of the things that we expect Christmas to be, and it will come even without those things. The first people to discover it in the movie are the Who's, of course. This is the moment they figure it out.
Well, I wonder who could have done this. Tell you people one thing. Invite the Grinch. Destroy Christmas. Invite the Grinch! Destroy Christmas! But did anyone listen to me?
I did.
No. You choose to listen to a little not to be taken seriously girl who hasn't even grown into her nose yet. Cindy, I hope you're very proud of what you've done.
If she isn't, I am. I'm glad he took our presents.
What?
I'm glad.
He's glad. You're glad. You're glad everything is gone. You're glad that the Grinch virtually wrecked, no, not wrecked, pulverized Christmas. Is that what I'm hearing from you, Lou?
You can't hurt Christmas, Mr. Mayor. Because it isn't about the gifts or the contests or the fancy lights.
That's what Cindy's been trying to tell everyone.
And me. He's been trying to tell me.
He takes the decorations, he takes the trees, he takes the food, he takes everything about Christmas. And Lou finally figures out, you can't hurt Christmas. It comes without all of those things. I don't have to have all of those things. But eventually, not only the Who's, but the Grinch figure this out as well.
The final note in my symphony of downright nasty, not niceness. The crescendo of my odious opus. Oh, the wailing and the gnashing of teeth. The bellowing of the bitterly bombed out. It'll be like music to my ears.
Then the Grinch heard a sound rising over the snow. It started in low, then it started to grow. But the sound wasn't sad. Why, this sounded merry. But it was merry. Very. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, was singing without any presents at all. He hadn't stopped Christmas from coming. It came.
Somehow or other, it came just the same.
Mr. Grinch!
And the Grinch, with his Grinch feet ice cold in the snow, stood puzzling and puzzling.
How could it be so? It came without ribbons. It came without tags. It came without packages, boxes, or bags.
And he puzzled and puzzled till his puzzler was sore. Then the Grinch thought of something he hadn't before.
Maybe Christmas
He thought,
doesn't come from a store. Maybe Christmas, perhaps, means a little bit more.
It's that phrase, it came without, that I want to spend the rest of our time talking about. It came without. Which shouldn't surprise us, because the first Christmas was a Christmas that came without a lot of things. It's not the story that you and I would have written. If we were making up a story of God coming to earth, we would not have made up this story. That's one of the things that gives it sort of the ring of truth, is that no one would have written the coming of God to earth with so much without, So much lacking. So many plot holes and missing pieces. Let me give you just a few of those. Christmas, it came without the right government. It came without the right leaders. Israel had been overtaken by Rome as Rome was expanding its empire around the world. At the time, Israel was occupied territory, occupied by a government that did not care for them or notice them or value them in any way other than their ability to contribute to the tax base of the Roman government. Luke chapter 1 tells us, in the time of Herod, king of Judea, there was a priest named Zechariah. In the time of Herod, Herod was not the guy you wanted leading things. He was not the guy you wanted on the throne. He's not the guy any of you would have voted for. He was barely sane. He was incredibly paranoid, and he was extremely ruthless. And barely sane, very paranoid, extremely ruthless is a bad combination in a leader. When you've got all of those together, you're in a bad place. They were without a leader to look to. They were without a leader for the country where they lived in. Luke chapter 2 says, in those days, Caesar Augustus issued a decree that a census should be taken of the entire Roman world. This was the first census that took place while Quirinius was governor of Syria, and everyone went to their own town to register. Why? Because this government they did not vote for, this government they did not even like, told them to. They're living under leadership they didn't choose, they didn't want. Christmas came without what we would think of as good leadership. It came without. Christmas also came without fanfare. There were no big announcements. I mean, prophets had said for hundreds of years this is going to happen. They had said it to God's people, be ready, it's coming. But when Christ was getting ready to come, there was one angel that visited Mary and one angel that visited Joseph quietly, alone. Even when an angelic choir showed up in the skies on the night that Jesus was born, there was just an audience of a handful of shepherds. This was not some global announcement. There was not a marketing strategy to Jesus coming. There were no billboards. None of their social media posts went viral. There were no influencers propping up this big event that was supposed to happen. It came without noise or fanfare or much, if any, announcement. Mary was without a husband. You know the story. I mean, she was committed to Joseph. She was betrothed to Joseph, we might say. But she wasn't married to Joseph. No telling how much conflict that caused in her social circle, not to mention even in her family. Mary and Joseph were without a room in the inn. They get to Bethlehem after traveling 90 miles, an exhausting trip for anyone, but especially someone that's 9 months pregnant. And at the end of that exhausting trip, there is no room for them. God is coming to earth, and there's not even a space for him to be born. There's not even an appropriate, an acceptable room for him to be born. Luke chapter 2, verse 6 says, while they were there, the time came for the baby to be born, and she gave birth to her firstborn, a son. She wrapped him in cloths and placed him in a manger because there was no room available to them. They were without a room, without a space, without the barest essentials of what they may need to deliver a baby. Mary and Joseph were also without resources, which may explain why they were without a room, or at least partially explain. We see it more clearly later in the story. Mary, according to the custom, according to the law, went to present Jesus at the temple. Luke chapter 2 says, when the time came for the purification rites required by the law of Moses, so this is coming from the Old Testament, Joseph and Mary took him to Jerusalem to present him to the Lord. As it is written in the law of the Lord, every firstborn male is to be consecrated to the Lord and to offer a sacrifice in keeping with what is said in the law of the Lord, a pair of doves or 2 young pigeons. Luke is writing this particular gospel, and Luke is very detailed in his telling of the story. When Luke begins the Gospel of Luke, and then kind of part 2 to the Gospel of Luke, which is the book of Acts, he begins both of them by saying, I've done a lot of research. Like, I've talked to a lot of people. I have the facts straight. I'm going to add all of the details. And yet, in this case, Luke doesn't give us the backstory to this offering that Mary and Joseph were making. In order to get the backstory, we have to jump back to Leviticus chapter 12. This is what we're told in Leviticus 12, the law of Moses. When the days of her purification for a son or daughter are over, this was any woman who had a child, she is to bring the priest at the entrance to the tent of meeting a year-old lamb for a burnt offering and a young pigeon or a dove for a sin offering. But Mary and Joseph don't bring a year-old lamb. And that's because of the next verse in Leviticus. But if she cannot afford a lamb, she is to bring 2 doves or 2 young pigeons, one for a burnt offering and the other for a sin offering, which is what Luke tells us she brought. If she can't afford a year-old lamb, if she is without, if she's low on resources, this is the other option. And we come to Luke and we realize Mary and Joseph were without. They couldn't even afford the prescribed offering. They had to go with offering plan B because they had a need. They had a lack. They were without. The other thing we know from the Christmas story is that Jesus came for those who were without. That was his whole mission. To find those who were without and to fill them with good things. Mary, after she hears that she's going to be the mother of the Messiah, responds with a prayer. It's been set to music, and now churches sing this particular prayer sometimes. I just want to read a portion of it. Luke chapter 1, beginning in verse 51. He, speaking of God has performed mighty deeds with his arm. Now listen to the description of his mighty deeds. He has scattered those who are proud in their inmost thoughts. In other words, those who have. Those who are proud in their inmost thoughts. The he has scattered. He has brought down the rulers from their thrones. Again, the haves, God's brought down. But he has lifted up the humble, the without. God has lifted up the without. He has filled the hungry, the without. He has filled the hungry with good things, but has sent the rich, the with, away. He has helped his servant, without. He has helped his servant, Israel, remembering to be merciful to Abraham and his descendants forever, just as he promised our ancestors from the very beginning. As Mary is responding to the news that she will be the Messiah, she prays this prayer and says, I see what God's doing. God's filling the needs of the without. God's heart is close to the person without. God's heart is moved by the one who lacks, for the one who is hurting, for the one who is broken. And Jesus' ministry would reflect this. When you read the Gospels, who is Jesus constantly moving towards? The broken and the scattered and the one with tears and the one who's been left out their whole life. Jesus' life is constantly moving towards the without, and he's constantly warning the with. Be careful. Be careful that you don't trust all your resources, because the without are responding to me. The ministry of Jesus was to move towards the without. His whole coming was because we are without. He needed to come because you and I were without a relationship with our Heavenly Father. That relationship had been broken by our sin. God, who is holy, was now out of relationship with all of us who were sinful. We were without that relationship, and Jesus comes to step in between our sin and God's holiness and give His life for us that we could be redeemed. Jesus came for the without. He came for the hurting and the needy and the broken and those who don't feel like they have enough and those who don't feel like they are enough. It came without. We step into Christmas this December 1st, and many of us are aware that there are pieces and parts of this Christmas that will be without. I obviously love to celebrate Christmas. I love everything about Christmas. But every season as I step into Christmas, maybe because I'm a pastor or maybe just because I see it so much, I know that there are always people, not just one person, not just two people. There are always people who know that they're moving into a Christmas season without. They're moving into a Christmas season maybe without a dream that they had held on to for a really long time. And something is telling them it's just not going to be. Maybe they're moving into Christmas without some hope that they had been holding on to for a long, long time. Or without peace that they desperately want to find. And for all of our decorating and all of our songs and all of our clothes, there are people who step into Christmas this season without joy that they really want to discover. I'm always aware that this will be the first Christmas for somebody that is without somebody they care about. Every Christmas, somebody is stepping into that very first Christmas, and there's going to be an empty chair, and there's one less present to buy, and there's one less stocking to hang, and they would give anything to be able to shop for that person one more Christmas. For some, it's not a person that's not here anymore. It's a person that for whatever reason that relationship is just not what it was. It's been broken by something. You know, Zach sang the song, "Please Come Home for Christmas." And that's reality for some people. That there is a broken relationship and they are feeling the sense of without. And maybe they are home. Maybe they're not saying, "Please come home." That person's going to be home, but the relationship is not going to be the same. They're going to be without something. Every Christmas. And for most of us, I'm not asking you to make stuff up for yourself, but for most of us, there is some part of Christmas that we would look at this year and say, that's not going to be the same. Not going to be the way I'm used to. It's not going to be the way we've always done it. And from 2,000 years ago, Jesus would echo the message. Christmas can come without. It can come to you without. I don't mean that those things will go away. I don't mean that He magically makes everything right. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying in whatever you're carrying this Christmas, Jesus still brings hope to us. He still brings joy to us. He's still able to bring peace to us, even when we don't see the finished story, even though when everything isn't fixed yet. It can come without. For Jesus As he filled a manger 2,000 years ago, he is still able to fill those places that are without. He is still able to be in those hard places with you. For he did come to be with you, to see you and hear you and know you and be in you and walk with you. It comes without. Would you bow your heads, close your eyes for just a minute? As we close, I want to pray a prayer over us. December 1st, 24 days to Christmas Day. I want to pray a prayer for those who sense without this Christmas. We will sing and we will celebrate and we will laugh and we will enjoy good friends and food and movies. But for some of us, in the background is a without. And I wouldn't embarrass anybody at all. Everyone's heads bowed and eyes are closed. But if that's you, and just as a form of receiving this prayer, if this looks like a Christmas without in some way for you, would you just slip up your hand? I want to pray for you. Yep. All over the building. All the hands are going up. All over the building. God, we come to you, the God of more, the God of enough, the God of filling, realizing that here on this side of eternity, we sometimes walk through days and even holidays, seasons, even spiritually meaningful holidays. We walk through them without sometimes. A longing that's been unfulfilled, a heartache, a burden, someone we lost. We acknowledge that stepping into this holiday. We're not trying to paste pretty lights over hard things. But we are here to acknowledge that you meet us in the without. You carry us through the without. You are strong enough for the without. And those especially who raise their hands, I pray they sense, as these days begin to go by, a presence, a feeling of hope and peace. And if not hope and peace, at least knowing that you are near and you see and you have not abandoned them. We praise you, the God of our times that we are with, and the God of our times that we are without. In Jesus' name, amen.